I'm going to talk about HEX, which is a supercomputer that runs in Discworld. I'm going to keep an eye on the time because, maybe. So, yeah. So, I grew up reading a lot of Discworld. If anyone here hasn't read Discworld, which is a lot of people here, I might spoil a couple of things. I'm not entirely sure what counts as a spoiler because it kind of was just part of my upbringing. It's just, yeah. Down the bottom, you'll notice that there are error messages. If you can read them, enjoy. If not, that's alright. So, Discworld, for people who don't know it, is a comic fantasy book series written by Terry Pratchett. He's a British guy. He's amazing. He has a really great mind. There are 44 books in Discworld. There are lots more short stories. There are some graphic novels. There are some really great things that go on. The interesting thing about it is that there are several storylines that follow different characters, and there are also different, like, types of stories as well inside that. So the one that we look at today is going to be the Wizard, mostly with Rincewind, because he is the most, the best.
I would argue the librarian.
He's the most enjoyable. He's the most enjoyable to read Wizard and Discworld. He runs away from things a lot. Yeah.
Including a striker.
Very true. The sheep here are really scary. So yeah, there are several main storylines that we won't talk about, but they exist as well. So HEX itself is a really, really good thing that was created and assigned to the Discworld book. No, it wasn't actually. It just existed at some point. So it was created, and it was very basic at the beginning. It was basically like something that we would have a long while ago, except to use ants for some reason, for pun reasons, lots and lots of pun reasons. So it was very basic. It was just a few tubes. It had some punch cards. You probably remember punch cards. I know Libby has stacks and stacks of them at home, just from her mum. Yeah. So it was originally used to just solve a couple of problems, do whatever the punch cards wanted to do. In the next book, it evolved. It developed some clockwork functions, and then it kind of just developed from there over the course of a few different books. It's featured in about 7 different books. It's a pretty important plot point in a lot of them. And it's also just a lot of amusement for computer scientists and anyone that knows any texting. So this is a video. It's going to be low res because it's not actually legit, and I'm a wonderful person. This is a clip from the Hogfather movie. So this has a couple of plot points in it from the movie that we might skip a little bit. What the fuck have you done to YouTube?
I made it cute.
This is amazing. Should be around, yeah.
So if you could please
So the wizard's going to ask the computer a question about what the fuck's happening with the belief system in Discworld. There are tiny little gods popping into existence. So they're just going to ask HEX a couple questions. This is a big red freezer. It turns the computer off and on. This is a beautiful movie. You'll recognize this from people called yelling to a phone. a noise just happened. I want an explanation. This is a mouse. These are all the ants going through all the various things. There's a really good sticker. And the output is on this piece of paper, and it precedes every single statement with plus plus plus, and it ends it with plus 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 as a reference to some very basic syntax. She's a total badass. What point? That's the god of hangovers. Oh, Alfie.
Yeah, there's always one missing.
They just made another god. I've forgotten where the actual So you can just see here that they're using HEX to ask a lot of questions of, they can figure things out for them really quickly. It's basically a supercomputer, except it does spells and it does knows things. It might be sentient, it itself thinks it's sentient, but we're not sure.
It doesn't become sentient. Oh dear.
Yes.
Interesting times.
And it keeps developing.
At this point in time, it's kind of in the middle. So this movie is very interesting with its belief thing. It's lots of fun. We can watch it sometime. Yeah, so they're just going to answer a couple of questions of each other. A little bit later on, we get that. Oh, cheeser. Melon, readers and stuff. So this is Jess. Jess is the key character in Discworld. He's amazing. He's dressed up as Hogfather, which is basically Santa Claus, except much more primal here. And now he just talks to him.
Yeah, we can hear you too. And we're currently doing both, so please either come up or go away. Sorry. We're warming up for the thing. Yeah, for sure. Could you warm up now in front of elephants too?
but now the computer believes in the god. Good work. So yeah, Death is wonderful. Hex is wonderful. They're both really good things.
This universe is wonderful.
Incidentally, Hex asked for a teddy bear. And whenever they took the teddy bear away from Hex, it printed an arrow because it was saying, wow.
Yeah.
That's not
So, large robots.
So yeah, I'll relate this to computer science now, I guess. So.
Close the windows.
Yeah.
Just
I was
new
on
windows.
call, so you can do that anyway.
I want to stop telling the arse that much.
We're already doing that. Develop stuff for that, mate.
Yeah, so Hex has a lot of references whenever it describes or whenever it develops in any way whatsoever. So to run, it actually requires bugs in the programming, in the system, so to say, because of the ads that actually run the transactions. It's coded in soft law, so you have to write soft law instead of software to run it, which is really, really wonderful. The power that runs it is from a water wheel of male sheep skull, so you could say it has some really good RAM. The anthill inside thing that's the sticker on the computer in the movie, and it's also the background of this thing. If you look at most of the computers in this room, well, Windows computers, they would have had a little Intel inside sticker on them. Mine definitely does. Yeah. And that's just a really good fun. There's a mouse which is used for controlling it. They tried taking the mouse out once, and they didn't give it cheese once, and it just stopped. And they gave it another cheese error. Yeah. Then there was a really nice thing in the third Science of Discworld book, which was another magical university elsewhere in the disc was also created a computer, well, a computer-like thing, and however this thing was only I forgot which way this round goes, which way around this goes, but I think the Hex counted as a very big thing, whereas the other one, which was called HEX, only counted as a quite big thing. Now, if you look at real universities in real life, we do actually have some supercomputer races. There's a website that you can look at which has the top 500 supercomputers rated in terms of speed. ANU's, well, not technically, I'm pretty sure it is associated with ANU, but only weakly. Just over there we have a supercomputer, the National Computational Infrastructure. It's called Ryzen. It's really quite good. So it's the most powerful in the Southern Hemisphere, if I remember correctly. They do really good trivia on Tuesdays that no one ever answers, so I share it to CS today, and then people answer there. It's good. Yeah, so that's how it relates to computing science. So one of my other really good passions is science fiction. So Hex has some really good things about the philosophy of science fiction. If you look here, because Hex is a magical computer, so it's created a world where magic is the basis of everything instead of science. There's some really interesting relates between the round world, which is our world, and Discworld, which is their world. They have round world contained in a little sphere in the university. They created it accidentally. And then all of the science of Discworld books involve them going to round world and interacting with things in really interesting ways. Yes, so the reason that's interesting is because Arthur C. Clarke's third law, which is any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and Snyder's law, which people can read themselves. the really cool thing about that is that Hex is sufficiently advanced magic that you can't tell it apart from technology. So it's a reverse of alpha C quarks, and it's basically Nivens. No, not really Nivens at all, but it is a really nice thing. And there's a quote in one of the Science of Discworld books in the science sections that says they created a thing so much like a computer that the computerness actually seeps through. That it actually, there's a quote similar to that, and it kind of, there's a gap in this thing that is like a computer, so it turns into a computer gradually, just by sucking up all that stuff from around the world, which is really good. There's also the things about sentience, so HEX thinks quite a lot, so it can think a lot more than most people, even most magical beings. It is made of magic, so it's entirely possible that it's a sentient being. It probably is. The system admin in the university kind of doesn't care, doesn't want people to worry about it too much, so he just says it only thinks it's sentient, which is really good, because I think before I am, it thinks before it, therefore it is. And then the effects that Hex has had in the real world, which are really cool, is that there is actually a supercomputer called HEX, which was named after Hex. That was in 2001. I'm not sure if it's still, I don't think it's still probably relevant. That was quite a while ago in the supercomputer world. And I nearly downloaded the interpreter for this programming language that is based on it, which is really nice. It's just stack-based. It's pretty simple. You create a variable, and you can put a variable onto a stack, and you can put more variables onto a stack, and then you can take variables off the stack, and you can use it. And there's some very, very basic transactions that you can do with it. They just call it things like GPL bugs. The errors it gives are out of cheese, melon. There is a Wikipedia article that explains what the error messages mean.
Flip, here's the flop, flip.
Yes. That was from the PlayStation game, not any of the books. I think that's one of the answers that it gives when you ask it why. Yeah. So there's some other really nice stuff, which I was about to say, and have to go more to say about. I'll think about it later if people ask me questions about it. So the title of this one is called Discworld HEX Death. So HEX has been really, really useful in a lot of the stories that run in the Discworld. It's probably saved Discworld a few times. Its immense believing power, as seen in the Hogfather, probably helped that out a whole bunch. But at least it got repaid with this fluffy teddy bear, so it's probably not much of a debt. So yeah, it was heavily involved in creating Roundworld, so this world. So they estimated that the spells they wanted to cast to make it would have taken about 3 weeks. But because Hex was really powerful, it is really powerful, and it can do spells really quickly, it did it in like a couple of minutes. Hex is also really useful for the university in that they use it for studying
everything.
Yeah, but they use it for the lecture of recent runes or something like that.
They use it for high energy magic.
Well,
it's Fonda Stevens is for the high energy magic thing.
But they also use it to research spells that technically shouldn't exist, but it casts them fast enough that the universe doesn't realize that they shouldn't exist.
Yeah, that's how Discworld works. It's really weird.
Like, Discworld is wonderful in that it is actually a disc. It's carried on the back of 4 elephants, which are on top of a turtle, and the turtle swims through space.
Right at you in the sun.
Yep. There's a sun that circles it, there's a moon that circles it, there are maybe stars up in the...
There's a mountain in the middle where all the gods hang out.
Oh yeah, true. And they just play chess and like gamble.
And the speed of light is actually pretty sluggish.
Yeah. Oh, true. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Perfectly kind of rolls and rolls a 6.
There are some really good sentences.
There's a great quote which is the gods don't like chess. They can't get the hang of the pieces, and they can't remember the way the knights move. Gods prefer games like you do not pass go, you do not achieve salvation, go directly to hell.
And there is a really good hell. Rincerin runs through reasonably briefly. Yeah. So yeah, HEX is really good for the university, especially so there's a clack system that runs an Agmorpov after a couple of books towards the end of the current timeline actually. So it's clack is just semaphores basically. It figures out the code that the different things use, so they have a little semaphore up on the roof and they can send whatever they want. The vice chancellor of the university considers how legal this is and decides that no one will ever know, so it's okay. So there is no actual monetary hex debt. It's not indexed at a bond rate or even at a currency rate. There's no debt there. These are my sources. We can push this back to the picture of Brisbane because he's great. Does anyone have any questions about Discworld? I know lots of quotes.
What is your favorite quote?
I'm not actually very good at quotes.
Who's your favorite character?
Princeman.
What is your favorite
It would have to be the FTB, which Zach only explained to me like 3 weeks ago. So it's fluffy teddy bear enabled, which means that it's nearly FTP enabled. There's also other thoughts about what pun it could be referring to that computers require to do. I think there was something about MDB lib or something like that in the sentences that I read today. Yeah, there's some argument about what that refers to. There's a really good fake.
Mostly it was that the Fonda citizens didn't want to tell the Arch-Chancellor it has to run with its fluffy teddy bear or it just prints wah mine until the teddy bear is given back. So big man Adrian decided, we could just say it has to run with the FTP enabled.
HEX is kind of cool, because it's like the way Discworld at some point it started off being this parody of fantasy, generic fantasy. And then at some point Terry Pratchett started parodying every other genre through the lens of it. So there's like all the city gods, they're literally police procedurals.
They're beautiful.
They're beautiful, I know, they're my favorite
Beautiful people.
So like HEX is kind of part of Terry Pratchett parodying the entirety of everything through the lens of fantasy, and like
he's really great.
Read them.
Yes.
Yeah.
What would you recommend as the best one? The Color of Magic's a really good one to start with.
Okay.
No,
there's an entire fucking graph about this.
Seriously, they're a massive type of what you should read first.
So, the different storylines that I mentioned, Rincewind has the starting book, the Witches have a starting book. Rincewind was written first, out of all of them, so the first 2 books there are the very, very first books. The Witches are really good if you like feminist fantasy, and also like cats. They have a really good cat. The City of Watch is great if you're kind of feeling sarcastic or kind of depressed about things. Well, yeah.
If you're angry at the world, go read some City Watch.
Yeah. It gets curious towards the end, and he has a kid, and then there's a book called Where's the Cow?
Where's My Cow?
Yeah,
Where's My Cow?
Great.
That's good. Death is just generally really good.
It does kind of depend what you like. If you want to jump headfirst into the craziness, because this world gets really crazy, then start with Color of Magic and Light Fantastic, because they are the craziest, but because they were the earliest, they're also not as polished as some of the others, and there are some odd jumps in pacing, plot, and there are a lot of what the fuck is going on moments.
But there's some really, really good hobbies.
So, if you're interested in reading The Color of Magic and kind of taking it a little bit slower, I do have the graphic novel that I will loan out.
It's a very good graphic novel.
A gentle introduction is probably one of the shorter stories, like The Amazing Marisa to the Educated Rodents.
That is actually quite good. It is better if you know what it's referring to sometimes.
But Witches
there
are a good gentle start, as in City Watch.
Witches is good depth. If you like, as like a first introduction to Discworld, or the depth, like the books about depth, the very early books about depth really encapsulate everything that like Discworld.
Encapsulate.
Encapsulate. What's that?
Encapsulate.
That's really good. Death touches all the different storylines at different points, so you can figure out what's going on there. Moist One Listfig is a later one. It's also quite good, but it does rely on some prior story at some point.
You want to have read City Watch before you get to Moist.
Yeah. Even some of the
I
original authors.
disagree. I totally disagree.
You haven't even read any.
Doesn't matter. That's still not.
No.
I wasn't gonna argue with like you have no brow.
Tiffany Aching is really good for young adults, so that was it's very related to the Witches series, but it can also be read separately. There are also like 5 books that aren't tightly tied to any of the different storylines. They're basically just culture books. There's a really cool one called Moving Pictures, which is a parody of Hollywood, and
were they written, like, was the order that they are written also the chronological order that they are?
No, absolutely.
Well,
I mean,
within each storyline, yes.
yes.
So, like, within the City Watch thing, first City Watch hero is the first City Watch book.
But he also shifted from different places to different places.
Yeah. So, because for him, it's much the same way Ursula Le Guin describes Earthsea. It's a world that he has running around in his head, and it evolves. And when it's evolved enough for a cool story to be written, he writes a cool story. So there is a mostly consistent timeline that you can trace, but the timelines are only importantly consistent usually within particular areas. So the Witches has a timeline, the Watch has a timeline.
Rinsmond you can pretty much pick up anywhere.
Yeah.
Because Rinsmond's story never changes. Oh no, I'm running. Oh dang.
No, it changes. He's an actual professor at some
He
point.
is now the emeritus professor of egregious and unnatural geography.
Oh, I didn't know that one.
And then 2 flower things, and you do
But
need
there's a
to-
lot of rubbish.
Okay,
Yeah.
Anyway, Anita has points.
That being said, there was some book that I read that was like, oh, you should definitely start with sorcery. As somebody who actually did start with sorcery, that's the worst book that you could possibly start with.
Sorcery is tough. Sorcery requires you understand a lot about.
Yeah, about everything. I should really reread it because that is not
So sorcery, you need to read sorcery if you start with the early books and then jump straight to the later books about the wizards. You have to have read sorcery in between those because sorcery is what changes the wizards from being hardcore motherfuckers into fat lazy people.
It is really good, and they changed the wizards a lot. Personally, I picked up the fattest book, which is The Last Continent. Because it was a really nice place to start, and also it's about Australia.
I got given a copy of Thud and read that first, and it was the weirdest choice of first, but I still enjoyed it.
I read more really.
I agree with your opinion on the Thud magic. That was the first book I started with, and it was a great introduction to the world, the very first chapter.
Yeah.
And I really liked the hecticness of it all.
I agree in that sense. It can be good. It can also be quite a tough read though, because it's got a lot of moments where, hang on, what's happening here? I've just lost my 2 main characters, and we're talking about dryads for 12 pages. What happens to
But I mean, again, that really depends on your style of reading. For me, like, none of the Pratchett books, like, I could pick up any of the Pratchett books, even sorcery, without much background. And because I'm so used to reading Tolkien, it's just like, this is life. This is nothing. I know all the characters like that.
So if you've got a background in some fairly tough fantasy, then absolutely Colour of Magic's a good place to start because you get an immediate immersion in the world. If you're coming from more gentle books, then Colour of Magic will bend your head more than is perhaps comfortable.
Okay, here's a really challenging place to start. Strasha.
Oh, no!
Strasha is might not be part of the Discworld series. It's still under debate. It's a sci-fi book instead.
But no one's sure it's actually possible.
It
Well,
totally
because Pratchett hasn't yet decided whether or not.
Yeah.
He's putting Layla.
There was actually an interview done recently with Neil Gaiman where apparently someone described Terry Pratchett as jolly, and Neil Gaiman found this ridiculous. He's not jolly, he's just full of rage. And it kind of comes through in his book in that it's just pure sarcasm.
Yeah.
It's so
beautiful.
good.
When you read it, you have a smile on your face at least twice every paragraph.
Yeah.
But that's because sarcasm is great.
If you want a real sense of how angry he is, you probably want to go with the early Witches think,
Equal rights.
yeah, equal rights.
is good.
Equal rights is, as
I'll
you'd
tell you
expect,
walked in front of the
very,
camera.
very,
You now get to die.
is as you would expect,
Not my
very,
laptop.
very strongly feminist.
Sorry.
But it's
You're meant to be on
very
camera.
good.
It's weird because like the city guard books are like really angry, but at the same time they're really idealistic. Like
No,
Yeah.
that's as far as I
They're
know, that's
from
why
the
he's angry.
opportunistic at the same time.
it's
They're
just
really
like
cute.
Sam Vines is kind of
The typical hard-boiled, really sad.
he's a very idealistic one. He doesn't bring
Yes,
his values ever.
he's a
No,
beautiful
I think
human
he
being.
tries to be sad and grumpy and beaten, but he keeps failing at that. That's how
Well,
much
he
failing.
clings to his values too tightly, and his values are fundamentally
He's basically Sean Bean.
Sean Bean.
He is Sean Bean. He is.
I don't know.
Except he doesn't die.
Does he die from the punishment of not having
No, but he
crime?
No, but he has
No, I don't the same as not that.
three separate gods who exist purely to keep him alive at different points.
Right. That's the difference.
That's how much effort it takes to keep this boy alive.
What was the newest Vine book called again? The one with the goblins, it was all a metaphor for like. Oh,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, Snuff was sad.
I know, but I read that just after coming out of a bunch of fan fiction.
But that is the sense I get though is that that's the idealism is why he's angry. He's got a vision of how the world could be much, much better, and he's really fucking pissed.
In that way, Sam Vines is really like he's really good at author avatar. If there is a Pratchett has put himself in the book, it's in the form of Sam Vines.
Yeah.
And then Granny Weatherwax is the sort of character that he wishes existed somewhere in the world, so he come along and kick it into shape.
Yeah, she's amazing. She will smack everything back to Florida.
She's very realistic about her own abilities and her own limits, which is very nice.
She's just also devious and scary.
What was that quote where it's like, witches like the things that they don't have in leaders. Granny Weatherwax was the best of the leaders that they didn't have.
Yes. You will also get a lot of personification of objects. So in the opening scene of one of the books, a rain cloud. You follow a storm cloud throughout the opening of like 3 different chapters in this book.
Yes.
So it decides to rain in one part, and then it's in the mountains, which all the mountains always really rain. It just kind of goes around.
As far as I could tell, that was basically a parody of Wheel of Time.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Because the Wheel of Time books, which are brilliant books and epic fantasy, and it's most epic. They always start with this overly long description of the wind blew through X. It was not the start of the wind, it was not the end of the wind. Just long formulaic things that grows in every book.
Also, if another way to judge which things you want to read is if you like Shakespeare and Shakespeare parodies, read The Witches.
Yeah.
Just read The Witches.
Is the main one. So
Yeah, but like stuff before, they're all kind of Shakespeare.
yeah, true. But that's the one where it's like concentrated.
Yeah, well,
It's not.
What's that one? Because Witches is the first one.
That's the second one. The first one's equal right.
Yeah, because I haven't read Equal Rights.
no, Equal Rights wasn't it?
No, Equal Rights.
It's just a really good entry point because it kind of relates, but it doesn't.
Yeah, Equal Rights is not quite a witch's book, it's technically a wizard's book.
Yeah.
It just has Granny Weatherwax.
Yeah. It's like a witch's prequel.
Look,
Yeah.
just okay.
They introduced the characters
Control
before
F.
they make books about it.
Granny Weatherwax, read those.
Yeah. So Equal Rights is about a female wizard who wants to go to the university and
Yeah,
runs
good
into
luck
problems.
using that on that screen.
Yeah.
It's like the eighth son of an eighth son is a wizard. It just so happens that they're off the eighth son of the daughter or daughter. So like I can't remember.
Something like that.
I read the book. I haven't actually done it.
But that means that a girl is trying to get into the university full of men, and they're not happy about this. So Granny Weatherwax makes them take this girl, and that's he sort of invents this character of Granny Weatherwax, and then writes the Witcher series because he's such a wonderful character. You can't not use it.
So there is some really good debate about this and some really good charts about.
Yeah.
I read them in the complete wrong way, right? I started with pyramids.
Oh, that's my second one.
Then I skipped to
So we've got the color of magic is quite good. We've got equal rights, which the dotted the line linking it to weird sisters. It's kind of nice. Pyramids is a cultural one, so it's not entirely related to everything else, but it is a really, really good starting point for figuring out what's going on. You probably want to do that and then read Score Gods and then maybe jump into somewhere else. Mort is the first death novel. It introduces some really, really beautiful characters, including the badass blonde girl you saw before. So she was in there. Hogfather is towards the end of this one, and that was the movie that was based on. Other way around.
So Reaperman notionally comes after Mort?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only one where I would say it's not clear if the writing order is necessarily the same as the chronology order.
Well, it
Because a
doesn't.
lot of Reaperman seems to use a death that's pre-Mort.
It's also just him developing.
Yeah.
Yes. Then you get the Watchmen novels. You start with Guards there. For reference, I started over here.
You can start at minute.
And that was very nice.
As it turns out, I probably shouldn't have.
I
Because
started
Vines was I didn't understand Vines' character properly.
Moving pictures down here. Moving pictures down here is the one that you can start at that isn't related to things. That's the Hollywood one. And then you get this kind of really good stuff going down there. There's a couple of new books over here. I think that's basically all that needs to be changed in this one. This is May 2013. There is a new book coming out from The Witcher, I think. If I read that correctly. It could have been from the... No, not sure.
Well, he's kind of done all you can do with Tiffany Hay, I think. Really.
Yeah, she's developed as a character. She's pretty great now.
She's reached the end of her.
Yeah, so Sam Vines, and he's not writing books tonight.
It's really easy to... He's a father. He can develop more.
He's a father, yeah, but like...
I mean, he doesn't have to write books about Sam Vines in regards to
It feels like after...
carrot-only novel. Anyone?
Well, that's basically what Fifth Elephant is for large chunks.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It feels like there's a point, I think it might be Nightwatch, at which, like, Sam Vines...
The world of truth.
I feel like his story is kind of...
Yeah, there's not a lot more you can do with Vines, and I think he does it. A lot of his books that are set in Ankh-Morpork are trying new characters.
Yeah.
So Snuff tried something new with goblins, and it was really more about the goblins than it was about Vines.
Yeah.
And same with the wizards. He sort of played out what you can do with the wizards. So Unseen Academicals was a book about football and about the servants rather than about the wizards. The wizards sort of happened around it. It's a good book about football, actually.
It was a really good football book. I appreciate sports ball a lot more now.